Hello and welcome back to Creative Live Photo Week, sponsored by Adorama. My name is Jim Katechi and I will be your host for this next segment. I want to let you guys know that we have 3 channels going today. So you'll see on your video player that you can choose your channels just by going up to the channel link at the top right of your video. It'll bring a pop-up and you can just choose which channel you want to watch. But hopefully you'll be in Studio B with us. Now if you do change channels and you're in a chat, your chat will change as well. So you have to go and change your chat and relink that to be able to proceed with the interactivity of the chat rooms. Okay, without further ado, I want to welcome you to Sports Photography Basics with Kevin Girage. Kevin, why don't you come on out? Welcome, sir, to Creative Live. Is this your first time here?
Actually, it is.
All right. Oh, fantastic. Welcome to Creative Live. So, Kevin is one of the most sought-after photographers, not only in the United States, but also internationally. And he has won, what I hear, a ton of awards from the WPPI. Is that correct?
That's a few, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, without any further ado, I'm going to throw it to you.
Sounds great.
All right.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Creative Live for having me. Gosh, this is, believe it or not, my first time to Seattle. I've actually spoke and photographed all over the world, and I've never been to Seattle. It's always been on my bucket list of something to do. So later today, I'm going to go to that market, and we're going to catch a fish. So if anybody wants to come with me, we're doing that, okay? Most of you guys probably know me from my wedding work. You know, I've done a lot of seminars at PPA or WPPI, doing weddings and portraits, but I've always had a deep love for sports. I grew up just loving sports. Back in the day, gosh, I used to get the sporting news. I used to get a subscription to sporting news because before we even had cable, I would actually get my sporting news and my Sports Illustrated, and I would look at the box scores. That was the only way we could keep track of our favorite athletes, my favorite baseball players, and see how they were doing, their box scores. So I would actually religiously look at that, and then I'd look at the photography. I would look at Sports Illustrated photographers and other magazines, and I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. That's what actually got me into photography, was looking at sports photographs. And so I've been a sports. I even went to the University of Oklahoma because they had a good football team. True story. I love the color red, and they had a good football team. So I went there and just shot sports for fun. And it got to the point where my business was growing really well with my weddings and portraits, and still is. And I decided one day, I wonder if I could do some sporting events in the Dallas area. That's where I'm from. And so what I did, and I know we're going to get questions from the internet and from you guys in the room, Kevin, how do I shoot college and pro sports? How do I do that? Well, I'm going to tell you my story real quick. Right now I work for USA Today Sports Images. Great people. I love the organization. And here's what I did. I didn't have credentials back in the day. I didn't have credentials to shoot any events to have field access. So what I did is I would actually go down to my local field in local parks and actually find guys that were actually doing pickup basketball games. And I'd take my cameras and I would shoot. And I'd actually ask permission. I was like, hey, do you guys mind if I take pictures of you guys shooting? I'm actually just working on getting better. And by the way, if I get anything cool, I'll be happy to email you. And they're like, sure, knock yourself out. So I actually taught myself. I'm a self-taught photographer at everything I do. My weddings, my portraits, my lighting, everything's self-taught. I believe in being a sponge. I'm a sponge for information. And so I did that. I got there, and then I'd come home, and I'd look at the magazines. I go, oh, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And just try to figure it out. And then at the Ranger games, I'd go to Ranger games as a kid, and even up to several years ago, where I didn't have a credential, I'd sit in the stands, and luckily they let you bring in a camera and a lens. As long as you're not blocking any of the people around you, you can shoot. And so I did that. I'd take pictures here and there and go home, and once again, look at the magazine and see, okay, that looks pretty good, or that doesn't look good. What can I work on? So then one day, I decided, you know what, I'm going to send in a portfolio to USA Today. So what I did, I actually created a flush mount album. I wanted to do something different. One thing you guys are going to know about me, I like to do stuff a little bit different. I don't like to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. Okay, to me, I want to stand out in a crowd. So I was like, okay, I'm going to send in an album. So I did. I created an image, an album. I mailed it in, physically mailed it in. The director of photography called me about 3 or 4 weeks after that. And I'll remember this conversation like it was yesterday. And he's like, Kevin, no one has ever physically mailed us an album. Most people will give us a link to their website, to their email, to the online portfolio. This is impressive. And he said this to me. I realized you didn't have credentials for these events. I realized you didn't have field access. But you know what? Storytelling is storytelling. Action is action. So now what I tell students when I'm speaking, if you're shooting Pee-wee level all the way up to NFL level, action is action. Storytelling is storytelling. dejection is dejection. Jubilation is jubilation. If you can tell that story, you will do well in this business. Okay? Make sense? Today, what we're going to talk about, this is interesting because sports photography, there's so much we can talk about. This is like a week-long course we're going to throw down into an hour and 15 minutes or whatnot. And each sport by itself has so many specifics. So what I'm going to do is I put together a list of tips and tricks and some basics that help me go, honestly, I believe, from here to here in the industry with my images. And we're going to kind of go over some of those, and I'm going to use stuff that we can use for just about any sport. So I'm not going to specify just by the sport. In the end, we'll kind of do some strategies based on sports, each particular sport, but I'm going to kind of do a generic level there. But one thing people ask me, they're like, Kevin, aren't you afraid of sharing everything you know and being so open? Aren't people going to steal your unique ideas, steal your techniques? And I always answer with a quote that I always say to people, a photographer's vision is the fingerprint of their photos. And what I mean by that is I can line up 3 photographers. I can tell them to shoot one subject. All 3 of those photographers are probably going to do something a little bit different. You might have one shooting vertical, maybe one horizontal, one might frame the subject to the left side, one might use a slow shutter speed. You name it, they'll do it differently. We all have our own unique vision. God's blessed me with my own vision. So I'm not worried about sharing and teaching because I think my vision is going to be totally different than your vision. Okay? But I'm going to try to help you guys as much as possible. Today, those of you guys that haven't seen my work, I'm going to play a quick little slideshow, then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how to do this thing. Okay, I want to thank Animoto for that slideshow as well as Song Freedom for the music. One thing I'm still very proud of, I still have some images from there where I wasn't ever credentialed in that slideshow. And I still use them in my portfolio. Okay, let's talk about equipment, because this is the biggest question I get from people wanting to learn to shoot their kids, whether it be a soccer game, pee-wee football, Little League baseball, all the way up. What equipment do I need? And so we're going to go over that and kind of show you why. Right off the top, I'm going to tell you I'm not sponsored by any equipment company yet, but I'm just saying I'm not. And so I'm going to be open and honest. I get a little bit in trouble for being a little too honest sometimes, but I'm just going to tell you what works for me, and hopefully you guys can get a lot from that. When it talk about camera bodies, I think, honestly, any camera body with a frame rate of over 5 frames per second would be suitable for you. The biggest thing to remember these days is that camera bodies tend to depreciate a lot faster than the lenses. So if you're going to invest in something, I say invest in quality lenses. And we're going to talk about all the lenses I use, but to me, I can't stress that enough. Just because camera bodies go, every year they're introducing new and newer and newer and better and better and better. And the lenses still keep their value. Camera bodies go down in value. So just find a camera. 5 frames a second is plenty. I have a Canon 1DX. I actually use 2 of these. And honestly, I was not happy with Canon several years ago when they had other bodies out there. I was going to switch to something else, and then I finally got the 1DX in my hands, and to me, I am as happy as can be. This camera body does everything I need. It focuses fast. It is fast to shoot. The motor drives fast. The ISO level, if it's in a really dark gym or a dark night game, is unbelievable. I've pushed it up to 6400. I've even shot a wedding reception at 10,000 ISO, and it's been wonderful. So anyway, this is my camera of choice. Now, move on. With lenses, I like to recommend at least a 300 lens for people starting out. To me, if you're going to have your kid out in the field, you need to make sure you have enough room. You know, you're zoomed in. You don't want to have a real loose photo on a regular basis. Us wedding photographers, sometimes we want to put the bride and groom a little and then have a big scene. That doesn't work for sports photography. We need to see the emotions. We need to see the action. Like even when I showed you on the slideshow, you could see what's going on close up. So I actually would recommend nothing less than a 300. And there's lots of great lenses. There's a 70 to 300, I believe, that Canon makes. It's a 4.5 or 5.6 lens. So something like that. I want to show you my main lens first. Then we're going to talk about some other ones. I use the 400 2.8 by Canon. This is a new version. And I use this for just about everything except basketball. Unless I'm shooting up in the stands, then I'll use it for basketball. But for football, for baseball, for soccer, this is my go-to lens. It's a 400 2.8. And it's really sharp, it's really fast, and it's not nearly as heavy as the previous version. So I'll use that quite a bit.
I was thinking I may need to come over and help you lift that up.
Yeah, you might. Actually, I just started using, this is a brand new lens I just started using from Sigma. It's a 120 to 300 lens, and it's you know, that lens is like about $12,000. This one's, I think, a little over $3,000. So it's a great price, and I used it for a couple events last weekend, and it's really sharp. It's called the 120 to 300 2.8, and it's 2.8 all the way through. So if you guys are looking to get started, this actually is a very high quality lens for the less of a price. Okay. Now, if there was one lens that people tell me, you know, for the rest of my life, if I was forced to shoot with one lens and I couldn't use anything else, what would it be? What do you guys think? 7200? Yeah, every photographer has a 7200. This is my baby. I will use it for portraits, for weddings, for sports. If you look on the field of the pro sports photographers, everyone has one on at least one shoulder, 7200. And it allows me to be a little more flexible. Where my 400 or even my 300 will be a little too tight on some instances, this will fill, you know, 70 and then zoom out to 200, I'll be fine. So basketball, this is my main lens. Okay?
Excuse me, Kevin, is that the 4 or the 2.8?
This is a 2.8. All my lenses are 2.8.
Great, thank you.
Main reason I say it's 2.8 is because sometimes you're in a dark gym. Sometimes you're at night, it's really dark, the lights, especially on a Little League field. I mean, the lights are right in the middle of the field. Well, if I want to shoot somewhere over on first base side, it might be really dark. So I always, like I said, invest in the lenses, spend a little more money, get the 2.8 lenses if you can. Okay? And for lenses, lastly, I love my 16 to 35. And it's a wide angle lens because for features, like if I want to get stadium overall shots, even some action, or maybe just a different point of view. Everyone else is shooting tight. Well, what do I want to be? I want to be different, right? I might shoot wide because no one else is shooting wide. So keep that in mind. And everyone has a 16-35 because I know you guys that shoot just about everything has a 16-35. Let me show you some examples. This is a 400. You can actually see how close, the beautiful bokeh, beautiful blurred background. This guy just intercepted the ball. Wonderful reaction. That's what my 400. Okay, 7200. It's you know, he's just dunking the ball, but it's perfect. I shoot it vertical. 7200 works just fine. And here's 1635. Even though it's game action, I can still capture it. And what happened in this particular scene? This is at Nationals Park. I saw the sunset, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a great sunset. I want to capture that, and I couldn't capture my 400, obviously. And my 7200 still, it doesn't look near as good, so I just whipped out the wide angle and got a beautiful shot to capture the whole scene. Okay, any questions on that, or on lenses? Okay. Monopod. If you're going to be a sports shooter, you're going to need you a monopod. Okay, and I want to show you exactly how I use these. I usually have my heaviest lens, which is my 400. It's usually right here on my monopod. Okay. You can handhold, yes you can. However, at the end of the game, you're going to be like this, and we don't want to be doing that. I want to, be shooting 10, 20 years down the line. I don't want my back to give out, and so I'll always have a monopod. And then I'll have my 7200 on my shoulder. Okay? Tripods usually aren't allowed. I know some people are asking, well, I can't use a tripod. Tripods usually aren't allowed at ballparks. So monopods are. Okay. The next thing is actually a lens bag. I'm not one of the big believers in, you'll see some sports photographers that have all these belts all over. They've got water bottles, they've got lenses, they've got stuff. It's just like a big mess of stuff and they're walking around. And to me, it looks sloppy, one. Two, it's not just mobile. So I want to be mobile, so I actually have an undefined lens bag. The beauty of it, it has lens pouches where you can actually put a lens. So I'll put my 16-35 in here. I'll put a bottle of water in here. I might put some CF cards in here. I might put some gaffer's tape, and even has a place for your laptop. I'll put my laptop if I'm transmitting from the field. There's lots of purposes for this. And then it just zips up, and I have it on the other shoulder. So one shoulder, 7200, other shoulder, monopod. That's all I need. Okay, and I'm good to go. All righty? Any questions on that? We good? All right. Extenders are very important. Like we mentioned before, some of you guys that can't afford the big lenses now, there's 1.4, there's 2x extenders. Feel free to put those on your lenses. You know, if I put that on my 400, that's now it's an 800. Now, granted, you're going to lose a couple stops, but during a day game, it doesn't matter. You can shoot fine at f8, okay? And the 1.4, I use that quite a bit because I only lose one stop. So on my 2.8 lenses, that makes them f4 lenses. So now my 300 becomes, what, 420. Okay, so it's a way to get extra reach and not have to spend the money to buy a $12,000 lens if you're just starting out. Okay. Rain gear. Every sports photographer needs rain gear, just because it's going to rain on you, no matter what. Whether it be your kid's soccer game, because they don't stop soccer for rain. The only thing they stop is really if it's lightning's going on, or if it's baseball. Everything else usually plays through, football, soccer, you name it. So I actually have a little hoodie I wear. It's a little waterproof hoodie with waterproof pants, and then I have a little rain gear that goes over my camera gear, and then you're set. So always keep that in mind. And I do use a Think Tank security bag. This is what it looks like. The thing I like most about it is because I travel a lot, it goes onto the airplanes. It actually fits in the compartments. This is the Airport Security 2, version 2, and it has 3 locks. So these days where you have to look for your, be safe with your equipment, this actually has 3 locks where I can lock it up and make sure all my equipment is safe. The zippers as well as the back. And it's very sturdy. I've traveled all over. I had this for years now, and so I can't recommend them enough. Okay. People ask me what kind of compact flash cards I use. I use SanDisk Extreme cards, and I use the fastest ones I can find. Because I want the pictures taken fast. I want to be able to download them fast. Okay, and things that every photographer should have: gaffer's tape, cleaning cloth, and toolkit. You never know when you're going to need that stuff. And I'm going to talk more about gaffer's tape, how I use it with my remotes when we get into some stuff here in a little bit. Anyway, any question on equipment before we go on to technical stuff?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
A couple questions from the internet, and I have a couple questions. I'm going to start off with the internet, and it is BKG Photo wants to know, how many cameras do you carry to shoot a sporting event?
That's a good question. I honestly like to carry 2, no more than 3. I used to carry 3, and a lot of photographers still carry 3. They'll carry their big lens, their 400 on one body, they'll have their 7200 on another body, and they might have a wide angle around their neck. But to me, I'm still kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on. So I use a lens bag, and I'll put my wide angle in my lens bag. If I need to swap out my 7200 with my wide angle, it's an easy swap. So I usually carry 2 personally. And what was the other question?
Oh, and then for me, I know when you're shooting weddings, sometimes it's golden to have almost a mirror of your equipment backed up with you.
Yes.
Do you do that in sports as well?
I do. I have, like I said, I've got a couple bodies, and I also have a couple backup bodies I usually keep in my bag.
Okay, great.
It's locked up in the media room or wherever I'm shooting, or in my car. In my car, I've got a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Great.
If I ever go back to the car and get my rain gear, I'll do that, or whatnot. So, anything else on equipment from you guys? Okay. All righty. Let's go on. Technical info. Okay, this is important because I get tons of questions on this, and the question comes just like this. Kevin, during the day, I got these beautiful shots of my boy Joey on the soccer field. He's in focus. I love it. But at is the magic number. Honestly, I like to go to 1/1250, 1/1000th of a second is where my happy place is. But I can say you can get away with it at 1/800th of a second. That's the minimum I will do. These cameras are so good now, if you need to bump your ISO up, then go ahead and bump your ISO up. There's no problem with it. I can shoot up, like I said, 4,000, 6,400, 8,000 ISO. As long as I can get my shutter speed where it's a decent photo, 1/800th of a second, I'm good to go. I like to personally shoot around f2.8, f4. I don't usually like to push it past that. So if I have an extender, like on my 400, I can still use my 1.4 extender and shoot at f4, and it turns into an 800, okay? That's a long reach, so I can do that. I'll do that with football games if they're on the other side of the field. You can do that. You can get nice, tight frames. Filling the frame, there is a saying that photojournalists love to say, and it's called tight is right. And to me, it's very true, especially in sports. You want to kind of fill the frame with the action. You don't want it to be too loose, like we mentioned before about the wedding images. I'll just show you a quick example. The photo on the left, you can see how the coach, there's a lot going on. I shot it a little too loose, honestly. I shot it really loose. I could see just distracting elements from the players in the background, other coaches. The photo on the right is where I shot a lot tighter, and you can see how we have the beautiful background blur, and he fills the frame. It's a better photo. You know, clear and simple, better photo. Shooting styles. I personally, if I'm outdoors during the day, I like to shoot in AV mode, which is aperture priority mode. Main reason being is because we can't control the clouds coming over the sun, and as luck would have it, when I'm shooting, the clouds are always going to come in and out of the sun, and if I'm always fiddling around with my dials, I'm not concentrating on the action that I need to be concentrating on. I want to be just focused on the action and focused on telling the story, not the clouds. So I'll set my camera into AV mode, and I'm trusting that today's technology can make my camera adjust the way it needs to. I'm paying enough money at today's technology, it better do that, and it does. Okay, so I'm shooting AV mode, not having to worry about it at all. Now I'll dial up and down my exposure compensation when I shoot in AV mode, just because if it needs to be underexposed or overexposed a bit, just because the camera might get fooled every now and then, I will do that. Now, if we're talking a night game or a game in a gym, a basketball game, I'm shooting fully in manual mode. And once again, I'll have my shutter 1/800th of a second or 1/1000th of a second on 2.8 or f4, but it's set. It's not moving. There's no clouds going to change. If I'm outside in light, light coming down, the lights can always be the same. So I don't need to change my settings. Make sense? Okay. One thing that all our cameras have built in now that I love is called custom modes. And I'll give you a perfect example how I use that, because I use it quite a bit. On my camera body, it's C1, C2, C3. What it allows me to do, for example, C1, I've got when I'm shooting the field. Let's just use baseball as an example. I'm shooting the field. I've got my 400 aimed at second base. I've got it lit perfectly. I mean, 1/800th of a second or 1/1000th of a second, 2.8, we're there. Okay, something's going on in the dugout. Well, there's no lights in the dugout. Oh my gosh, I got to capture that. So I have my camera or my 7200. I whip out my 7200 because it's got the same settings. I switch over to C2. What C2 allows me to do is pre-program a setting. So I have that set to maybe manual or even AV mode. I have ISO 4 or 5000 because it's dark in there. Okay, and the shutter, it's going to automatically pick the shutter if it's in AV mode. So then I can automatically switch. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, now I need to go back to the field. C1. Boom, boom, boom. And you're not fiddling around with your settings. So I know a lot of people don't know about custom modes, but learn it because it's so easy to go back and forth. And you can do it in any sport. Most of the field sports at night, the field is what's lit. Where the coaches and players are, it's dark as all get out. Okay, so I'm going to change my modes. And it's just a simple switch, C1, C2, and you're not having to deal with that. Any questions on that, on custom modes?
I think that sometimes the internet is just a little bit, because of our timing, just a couple seconds behind, so questions are coming in, but we'll throw those our way. I do have a question,
Yes.
Not specifically on custom modes, but for your metering. Do you do spot metering? Do you do?
I don't. I use
tell
evaluative.
us a little bit about that, please.
For metering modes, I like to use the evaluative mode. I never use spot metering, and it's not saying you can't. I've always used evaluative, and I've never had a problem with it. So I just like evaluative.
Okay, and autofocus?
Autofocus? Yes, everything's autofocused.
And what autofocus metering are you using as far as?
Here's what I use when I'm shooting. I'm going to use full autofocus from the camera. I never use manual focus,
Okay.
except on a remote, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit. And I'm also in a servo mode. I'm not going to shoot in one-shot mode. If you're shooting one-shot mode, you're in trouble. So I'm going to shoot servo mode so I can track the action, and then I'm shooting continuous mode. Okay, and one thing I'm going to talk about here in a little bit is on continuous mode, I've got it to 10 frames a second. Like I said, if minimum 5 frames a second, you can get away with. One thing I don't do, I shoot like this. I don't go like a machine gun. I don't do that. Because one, if that is out of focus, you're going to get that whole series out of focus. I want to be recompose, shoot, recompose, shoot, shoot. Now I'm going to shoot in short bursts. And usually, I kind of always seem to take the first shot I take, usually. That's the one that always seems to be the one that I go for. So I kind of just time it. It's all about timing and anticipation, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Let's touch up on the rules and regulations, just because I think it's very important. Just because you have a son or daughter playing in a soccer game, and you have a great camera and a great lens, doesn't mean you could be on the field. Okay? I've actually heard stories where parents have gotten their team disqualified because they were in a position they shouldn't be in. Not only can you get them disqualified, but you also jeopardize the safety of the players, the coaches, the referees, whoever's involved. My advice to you is get the proper credentials. Go to the administrators, go to the coaches, go to whoever you need to get proper credentials. The last thing you want to be is the person that got your kid disqualified and got your team disqualified, okay? I can't stress that enough. And it does happen. I've heard several stories lately. Another thing is, you know, if you're sharing a sideline or even just a media room or wherever with other photographers, don't be a jerk. Be nice. Treat them like how you expect to be treated. I'll give you several examples. I've had huge newspaper photographers that forgot to charge their battery. And they're like, hey, anybody got an extra battery? Okay, I was like, you know what, here, I got one. I'll let him borrow it. I had another photographer, his compact flash card reader broke, and he needed to download images, so I let him borrow one of mine. If they're shooting, if you've got 4 or 5 of you guys in a row, you know, be cognizant of where they're pointing their lenses. If they're all pointing this way, don't go over here and block them, you know, and kind of work with each other. And so I'm always about that and about be sharing, because I know one of these days I'm going to need something. My lens might break and I might need to borrow one. I let another photographer borrow a wide angle the other day just because he didn't have one with him and he had an idea for a shot. So here you go, I got one, I'm not using it. It's in my lens bag. One of these days, something might happen to me. Okay, so just have good etiquette with other photographers and be friendly to everybody. I try to be, you know, so it just makes the whole working environment a lot better. Know the rules of the stadium, and this goes for any level of sport, whether, you know, like I said, from Little League all the way up. Everywhere is different where you go. And some places have rules like the photographers aren't even allowed to be on the field, like during a baseball game. Usually in a baseball game, most places we're allowed to go on the field, walk across, go to a different spot, and stay. Well, there's some stadiums where you can't go on the field. You have to actually go around into the stadium and back around. Well, you don't know that unless you find out ahead of time, and you'll get your credential revoked, you'll get dirty looks if you break the rules, and that goes for anywhere. So before I go shoot at any stadium at any level, I always find out before. I'll call ahead, or I'll try to talk to a photographer that might have worked there before, try to call the schools, hey, what are the rules, what are the guidelines do I need to be sure of before I photograph there? Okay? Question? Yeah.
I have a question about that. So,
Sure.
I've only shot a few games of basketball and football. And can you tell me between those two sports specifically, is there any kind of standard for you need to park and stay in the same place, or if it's okay for you to move around, or is that?
That's a good question. And usually, what I've found is usually it's a first come, first serve basis. And we'll talk, when I talk strategies, of where I prefer to be when I'm shooting on those sports. For basketball, usually, unless it's a big playoff game, something like that, where they have assigned seating, usually it's first come, first serve. And I actually use a little camping chair, the ones that are inflatable, and I just put my camping chair down. I get to a game probably 2 to 3 hours before, if it's a college or pro game. 2 to 3 hours before, and just put my camping chair on a spot I want to sit on. And usually for basketball, it's behind the goal line, the baseline there. I'll just put it there, go do what I got to do, and people know that that's my spot. Okay, now when they have assigned seating, then obviously it's where they put you. For football, really there isn't. Football, they just have lines around, and I'll draw a diagram later and we'll go over where you can shoot from. But it's around, usually from the 25 or 20 all the way around, depending on what you're shooting. And you're free to walk around anywhere in football. There's no particular where you have to be. But I'll talk about where I like to shoot, and we kind of talk about that, okay? Okay, we can move on here. Oh, there we go. Let me get this just right, guys. Okay. Know the sport inside and out. This to me is very important because a lot of people, there's a lot of casual shooters out there that don't exactly know all the rules of the sport. And to me, this is very important because if you want to create great photos, you need to know the ins and outs and all the rules, all the little things that might happen during a sporting event. And same with situations. And I'm actually going to show you and teach you about a situation I had last year. This was TCU actually played Kansas. Now, the story behind this is Kansas was very highly ranked. They were probably number 1, number 2 in the country. TCU was not a very good basketball team. Okay, so we got in there, and I was covering it for USA Today, and we all expected a blowout. So we're shooting the game. The first half, it's really close, so I go to transmit my images during the first half. TCU might have been up by 1 or 2, I can't remember. And so I transmit some images, I come back, and all my photographer friends are like, yeah, Kansas is going to come out, and just going to blow them out in the second half. It didn't happen. It's actually a close game, and TCU has the lead. And it continues that way. Then I'm thinking to myself, there's 2 minutes left in the game. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. This has a chance to be the most monumental upset of the season in college basketball. What do I have to do to cover this and tell this story? So, to myself, I said, okay, Kevin, first of all, we have to get celebration. I know when that buzzer hits 0, these TCU guys are going to go nuts because this doesn't happen here. And Kansas is not going to be happy. They're going to be dejected as all get out. So I got to get that photo. Secondly, I have to get the leading scorer. And this goes for any level of sport you're shooting. I have to get the leading scorer because he's going to be the star. Any stories that come out, it's going to be about him. And then third, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, all the students are going to rush the floor. They're going to make this a mosh pit because this doesn't happen here. It's a big deal. Okay, so the buzzer hits 0. I'm at the baseline. I'm seeing, what I see is right what you see, that very top picture. Number 21 raises his hands. I got it. I took the shot. I love this shot because number 33, the leading scorer, is the one lifting his shirt, going crazy like this. The Kansas guys are walking off all dejected. It's all in one photo. Okay, that tells my story. So now I'm like, okay, where's my wide angle? I put my 300 up. Actually, right before I shot this, because I put my 300 up because I didn't want to run around with a 300. I wanted to have my 7200 and my wide angle. So I've got my 7200, I got my wide angle. I'm like, where's 33? Where's 33? I'm looking for him. The crowd's rushing the court. I'm finding 33. I stick to 33. And then I'm in the mosh pit. I'm like, okay, where is he? Where is he? Okay, I find him. Luckily, some students lift him up on their shoulders. Shot bottom left. I take a couple shots. Boom, boom. I got it. So then I'm like, okay, now what? I got to go climb upstairs. I want to climb up the stairs to kind of capture an overall of all the students on the floor. So that's the bottom right photo. Everyone else is down, so there's no traffic. So I go up there, and I'm going, okay, I did it. So my buddy calls me. He's like, man, did you see the game? Oh, you were at the game. That's cool. I high-fived my buddy when the buzzer went off, and we were just happy. That's awesome. I can't believe you were there. I go, do you know in that second that you were high-fiving? But you know what I was thinking? I wasn't even had time to even think. I was thinking about, I got to get this, I got to get this, I got to get this. And this is how it ran. ESPN on their main page ran the top left corner, as did USA Today on their main page of the upset. Yahoo Sports used a close-up of 33 on the player's arms for their main shot. And then CBS Sports used another shot I took of more dejection of Kansas players. But I was able to tell that story in that split second. So that's what I mean by learned situations. It's not just about seeing what's out there and shooting it. It's knowing the sport, knowing what you have to cover to tell a good story. Make sense? Any questions about that? Anything? Okay. Tendencies. All players and coaches at any level have quite a bit of tendencies, and to me, it's my job to learn what they are. You might have that kid on a Little League team that he's the hothead. He's got a temper tantrum. When he strikes out, he's going to throw his hat, he's going to be upset. Those are photos to be made. Okay? You've got the one kid that's the happiest kid ever. He's always going to be celebrating. That's a photo to be made. It's not just about the action sometimes. It's about telling the story. Habits. Baseball players, when they strike out, I remember Bo Jackson back in the day would sometimes break a bat across his knee. That's a photo. Okay? They'll throw bats. They'll throw hats. And Rick Pitino, oh my gosh, coaches are great. They're always emotional. There's some that are just extra emotional. Will go crazy. So I'll just look at him every time there's a bad call, and it's a great photo. Signature moves. They all have them in any sport at any level. I've got basketball players. They'll do the 3-point. They'll do the 3 goggles is real popular now when they hit a 3-pointer. Dances, any level. Pee Wee football, man, these guys are going to do a little dance, when they sack a quarterback. And rituals. Baseball players are the most superstitious. There's lots of pitchers that won't even step on the chalk lines when they come out. They'll jump over it. They'll always point to the sky if they hit a home run. You name it, they'll do it. So kind of get to know the players on the teams you're covering to find out what their idiosyncrasies are, what their rituals are, what their habits are. And you'll get some great photos out of it. I have a whole series of Major League players blowing bubbles. I might do a book one day because I think it's just fun. For me, it's a game within a game because they all do it. They blow bubbles, and to me, it's just a fun shot. Adam Jones always has it. Beltre always has it. So it's tendency. I know which players have bubbles and which are going to blow bubbles. Just silly stuff like that. Anticipate moments too. Soccer. You guys that cover soccer at any level. Oh my gosh! After they score a goal, it's like party time. Some of you guys will do cartwheels. Some of them will go sliding. Those are photos to be made. I mean, you can't. I love covering soccer just because of all of the expression, all of the emotions that come out. When you shoot baseball, game-winning home runs, the teams are just going to jump out of the dugout and celebrate like there's no tomorrow. So it's great moments to capture. This was one from the Elite Eight. This was Michigan and Kansas at Cowboy Stadium last year. And this is actually from a remote camera, which I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit. What happened here, just to set it up, is Michigan was down by 3 points with not that much time left. And Trey Burke of Michigan hit a three-pointer from a mile away. I mean, we're talking 30 feet out. It was a long shot. Nailed it, sent the game into overtime. And I'm actually on the baseline behind that referee. And so I'm actually fighting with the referee to get a clean shot. And I did. I got a clean shot of him shooting it. But I have a remote camera on the side. During the playoff or the basketball tournament, you're allowed to put remotes on the floor on the side. So I had it there, but I kept shooting because as I shoot my camera, my remote's going off too on my other camera. And I'm praying to God that these are in focus because I see him celebrating, pointing to the other side with the crowd. And I'm like, please be in focus. So I'm shooting. This is the photo that came out. And I want to give a special thanks to Bob Rosado for this because he actually taught me this before. I never knew. When you shoot, Bob, for you guys that don't know Bob has been a Sports Illustrated photographer forever, and he's the COO of USA Today Sports. But he told me always have the scoreboard in when you set up a remote, especially a wide-angle remote, because you never know when the shot's going to tell a story. Well, I have it in there. You can see the score clearly. It's tied. It's going into overtime, and the celebration. So it's to me, it's a shot I really love from last year. Same thing with coaches. Back to coaches. Think about this. If you have a penalty or a foul during any part of a ball game, no matter what you're talking, one coach is going to be extremely happy. One coach is going to be really upset. There is no need to just look at the back of your camera. Nothing's going on. Wait for the next play. Have your camera pointed at one of the coaches. Usually the one that's upset is for a better photo. This is actually, I took it last week. What happened here is one of the Oklahoma players got thrown out of the game for a hit. They thought it was the new targeting rule they've got in football. They thought that he hit helmet to helmet. Well, he didn't. So Bob Stoops is yelling at the referee. He's like, look at the scoreboard. Look at the scoreboard. He did not have an illegal hit. Well, it's a picture, right? So he's upset. So instead of just goofing around, I have my camera on Bob, and I'm just like, bam, 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 bam. I'm getting the shot, and I love that photo. Do we have a question? I saw.
Are you going to go into a little bit more about remotes?
Yes, I'm going to go through the whole setup of remotes.
Thank you, because they were.
I figured people were wanting to know about remotes. Yeah.
Well, I also saw the shot that I loved in your beginning from above the basket. That had to have been directly above bird's eye. That must have been.
We'll talk about the remotes.
A
yes.
remote. Great. Thank you.
It's real scary, but I will talk about that one.
And can I ask a question from
Yes.
earlier, Kevin? Would you mind?
Sure. Go ahead.
So Jock asked. Have you ever been hit by an athlete in action? And are there actual safety concerns to consider when shooting sports photography?
Yes, there are. It's very dangerous to do. And I'll talk about that when I talk about how I positions like when I shoot football for sure.
Okay.
I've come close. I haven't been nailed yet. I have a lot of friends that have been drilled. Baseball is really bad sometimes, especially these days. I mean, those balls, you have no warning and you get nailed. So I've come close. For football, I almost got run over last week and the week before, but luckily they went right to the side of me. One thing I do for people who want to know how to get out of the way, I'll talk about it here in a little bit. I'm usually a little low to the ground, but I just would curl up in a ball or kind of keep my eyes open and move out of the way. Those guys are a lot more agile than I am, so if they just have a stationary subject, they're going to jump over you. They're not going to run right into you, hopefully. But yes, and I will go into detail about that.
Great, thank you.
A couple more moments. Know the situation again. You know, it's one of those things like in baseball, for example. What's the count that people steal bases on the most? It's 2 balls, 1 strike. So usually when I have that and I know I have a fast runner on first base, my camera is no longer going to be on the batter. I'm going to kind of focus it on second base. So what happened here, Leonis Martin of the Rangers, he loves to run. I mean, he's running a ton this year. He got on first base, so I'm ready at second base. And as soon as I look out of the corner of my eye, I see him running, I'm there focused, I'm ready, aiming right at second base, and I got a great reaction picture. Number 17 swiped him, missed the tag, and he goes up, and they're both up, and they're looking at the umpire saying safe, and the other one's going, no, I'm out, he's out, you know what I mean? So it's a good photo. No situations, 3rd and long in football, they're not going to run the ball. You know, 80% of the time they might. They're probably going to throw the ball instead of running. So know your situations, know the game. You know, if a team is trailing in basketball, they're down 2 points with 2 seconds to go. Okay, what are they going to do? You know, they could go for a 3 to win. They might try to tie it up. You know, just try to know your scenarios and where to be and what to shoot and what to look for. I'm big into looking for unexpected stuff, like I mentioned earlier. This is just a regular season game. I saw the player at the end of the game. Usually when you're looking for a reaction of the quarterback or the coach, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this player jumped up in the stands and was partying with the fans and the band. I'm like, that's a nice photo. And then I've got the players in the coach's arms, and I kind of frame them in the middle of it. It's just something a little bit different, right? So I'm always looking for unexpected moments because they make photos too. You know, I got a tip that Charles Barkley was going to ride in on a horse he's a TNT analyst, to the game in Oklahoma City. So I was out there looking for it. And sure enough, here he comes. This picture's run all over the place, let me tell you. Okay, now we can talk some stuff. Okay, these are actually knee pads, which you can get at Home Depot, Lowe's, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you what I do. I just kind of strap it on. I'm wearing jeans. I usually have shorts on or whatnot, but let's see here. I'll just put them on just real quick. It just goes on like this. It just Velcros on, nice and easy.
So Kevin, you just mentioned you
you
usually wear shorts.
Sometimes I'll use shorts
when
just
you
because it's 105 degrees out in Texas.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll wear shorts. If I can wear jeans, I'll wear jeans, but usually shorts. Okay, so I put my knee pads on like this, and the main reason being, I want to shoot, especially when I'm shooting soccer, football, I want to shoot as low to the ground as possible. Now, why is this? We want our athletes to look like titans, to look like gladiators, all right? We don't want them to look like little kids. And so imagine shooting a Pee Wee football team, and you're standing up shooting down on the players. They're not going to look larger than life. They're going to look like little kids. You're not even going to see their reactions and their expressions. You're going to get their helmets. You're not going to see their faces. Okay, by getting down low, now all of a sudden, I'm here, my 7200, I'm here making them larger than life. That's what we want. That's what makes an epic photo. This I took 2 weeks ago. Now this running back is diving for the end zone. Now he doesn't have a Superman vertical leap where he's way up there. I'm shooting this like this, down at the ground, shooting. So when he jumps and dives, now he looks like a superhero, right? Crossing the goal line. Another thing by being low, what it does, is you guys photographed at all these fields, especially Little League or high school fields, there's a lot of distracting elements. There's a lot of signage, there's some parked cars, there might be a lot of traffic, whatever it is, it's horrible. So by getting low, I can clean up a lot of those backgrounds, okay? Because I might just have the players in focus there, and then I've got maybe a bright sky, or I might have a wall or a building. It's a lot cleaner photo. Okay, does that make sense? That's a 5-star tip right there, getting low. I mean, it's simple, and it might seem simple, but it really will improve your photography. When I see photographers just standing the whole time, the whole game, to me, I think it's lazy, one, because I don't think you're going to get the impact of the photos that you can normally get. Okay, any questions on that while I'm undressing here?
Yeah, I'll throw 2 out if you don't mind.
Okay.
Baseball, is it tougher to get lower? Can you, even when on baseball, you can stay pretty low?
Baseball, actually, no, because they usually have wells on each side, and you're usually about field level. So you're plenty low. They have dugouts where the players are. That's usually underground, and usually where the photographers are on the field is about the same level. So no, you're fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. And Kevin, a lot of questions about all sports. Where you're focusing? Where's your focus point?
Oh, good question. My focus point, I usually use the center. I'm right around the center. I usually use like the 4 points around the center on my camera to focus on my servo mode. And with my Canon 1DX, they actually have different focus modes depending on what sport you're shooting. There's a guide on Canon's website that actually shows you if you're shooting gymnastics, use this mode. If you're shooting football, use this mode. If you're doing soccer, use this mode. So I've been playing around with a lot of modes, but when I'm focusing, I usually have the center point and then the 4 points around it is what I use. Okay?
And so you're aiming for that, for the action, the ball, the action,
Yeah,
whether it be the player's helmet or
right
their
center of the
jersey.
chest. Right center of the
Center of
chest.
chest.
Center
Great.
of chest is where I aim for.
That's what they're looking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
One thing, like I mentioned before, I shoot in short bursts and not machine gun style. Okay, that's real important, especially if you want to make sure you keep your focus. Because if you have that machine gun style, you're going to miss out if it's all out of focus. Okay. One strategy I use. And I have been burnt by this before, but I've also created some real hero shots from it before, is I don't believe in sticking with the pack, obviously from what you guys said earlier. There are some safe places, and we'll talk about them here in a little bit, of where photographers like to be during certain sporting events. They're safe because that's the percentage of the good shots are going to be there. Well, my rationale is, if I get the safe shot, and I'm with 30 other photographers getting the safe shot, how is that going to differentiate my work? If an editor is looking at my work after, he's going to have 30 of the same type of shot from the same angle anyway to choose from. What if I'm on a different side or a different place and he sees my shot? And it's like, whoa, I haven't seen that angle before. I'm using this one, right? Because they don't want to have the same thing over and over. They don't want to run the same image another magazine ran. They want something unique. So I always try to not stick with the pack and try something different. And yeah, sometimes I don't play the percentages and I get burned. Sometimes I'll be, okay, I missed a shot because it happened in the safe spot. But a lot of the times I get something really unique that no one else has. Okay, so that's something I want to kind of tell you guys. Let's see here. Let's talk remotes. This is a fun thing. This is a fun topic. I know we're going to have a lot of internet chat on this one. Okay, first thing before we talk about, and I show you all the remote stuff, there it is. Get permission. Okay, this is very important, especially if you're going to mount something up anywhere in an arena. I use this at any level, even in weddings. For you wedding photographers, there's a lot of churches that don't allow us to shoot at the front of the altar. I will set up a remote camera. I'm whispering because I don't want you to tell everybody my secret, especially the church ladies. But you can actually set it up on the altar and fire it off remotely. They don't even know where it's coming from. So get permission to use it. Okay, now let's talk about it. I know 80% of the viewers and 80% of people do not even know what this is. And I say that because whenever I give seminars, I ask who knows what the magic arm is. And not many people raise their hand. Do you guys know what a magic arm is? Yeah, nobody knows what a magic arm is. This is the coolest invention for remote camera photography, I think. What this is called is a variable friction magic arm by Manfrotto. Now, what this allows me to do, as you can see, every part of it moves. It's almost like a little Gumby type thing. I mean, every part of it moves. This is where the camera goes on. It's a camera plate. The camera just simply screws on, and you tighten it up, okay? This is a super clamp. Super clamp will go on anywhere you want it to be mounted to. So if it's a backboard stanchion, you do it there. If it's on a baseball fence somewhere, you just put it to the fence, you tighten the screw. The beauty of the variable friction arm is when you tighten it up, I'm tightening it right now, everything tightens, so nothing moves. Okay, so however weird configuration you need to get your camera set, it's tight and it's not moving. Now, another thing I do, when I mount my camera like this, let's say I had a bar here and my camera's here, I will also wrap a safety cable around it, like what I get from Home Depot's or Lowe's for like $5 that can hold up to 200 pounds. DJs, if you guys have like DJ speaker companies, they all have speaker wire. It'll hold it for about 200 pounds. And I do this because if during a game, let's say baseball, a ball comes and nails my camera or nails the magic arm and something happened where it fell down, it's just going to dangle on my safety cable. It hasn't happened yet, knock on wood, but it'll just dangle. And that way no one's in jeopardy. There's no players getting hurt. Nothing's going to go wrong. It's just going to dangle, okay? Okay, when I'm setting up my cameras for, let's read this. When I'm setting up my cameras for remotes, I'm always going to manually focus this. Let's just use an example. Let's use a soccer remote behind the net. Let's just say that. So I've got my camera down. I'm going to pre-focus it on a spot. Actually, you know what? I actually have a slide. Let's do it in baseball. This will work actually a little better. Okay, the shot to the left here is my remote camera in a dugout. I'm just going to set the stage for you guys. It's a baseball game. The Rangers are playing the A's, I think a year or two ago, I don't remember. I wanted to it was a big game, playoff implications. So I wanted to put a camera with a wide angle set to right where the manager would celebrate with a player. Okay, and I'm thinking late in the game, if something happens, I want to be able to capture a shot of the player coming in with the manager, maybe the other player celebrating. So I'm pre-focused ahead of time. You usually have to set up your remote cameras well before the players are even on the field. So usually for a night game, it's going to be during the day, okay? So what I do is I'll have my camera set to aperture priority because obviously the daylight's going to change. Okay, so I have it at aperture priority, probably about f5.6, f6.3, because I don't want to put too late. I don't want to have it on one little spot. I kind of want to capture the whole scene. So we're talking 5.6, 6.3. I'm putting it at ISO 2000, even though it's bright in the day, just because I know the day I'm not worried about. I'm worried about the night shot. So as we lose light, it's going to be better for my shutter speed. Also, the shutter can go down on aperture priority. It could maybe go down to a 400th of a second, but I'm not moving. It's like being on a tripod, so it's going to be okay. Okay, so I pre-focus. I put my Pocket Wizards. I use the +3s for these because they have long range and they have multiple channels. You can see I have my magic arm and my safety cable on the rail. My safety cable actually goes through my camera strap and my Pocket Wizard. In case anything were to hit it, it would be safe. Okay? So I manually focus it. It's all good to go. I tape down with my gaffer's tape. Let me show you my 1630. My 1635 is right here. So I go ahead and put it on manual focus. It's pre-focused. I will put a piece of gaffer's tape on top so it's not going to move. It's going to stay in manual focus. Okay? Because I don't need anything to change. What happened is I'm shooting in the other dugout, shooting the Rangers. The game actually went into extra innings, as luck would have it. And number 14 got the game-winning hit, or scored a game-winning run. I can't remember now. But this shot was captured with my remote camera, and this is what ESPN ran from this same setup. Pretty cool? Any questions? I know we had a lot of remote talk.
Yeah, sorry, and I maybe missed. How do you exactly fire it?
Okay, how do I fire it? I actually have these gizmos called Pocket Wizard +3s. I have one on my camera, which is a transmitter, and one plugged into the other camera via the sync port with the sync cord for the receiver. As I fire my camera in my hands, it's automatically going to fire this camera. So I've got two cameras going at once. Okay? Or I could take it off the camera, or take this off my camera and just press the button and it'll fire it if I don't want it to both go off at the same time. The cool thing about these Pocket Wizards is that it has a little button here, a little trigger, that you can actually put your camera to sleep or not sleep. Most of our cameras have a sleep mode, and mine's usually set to like 2 minutes or 4 minutes. What that means is if it's set off, then say 2 minutes expires, well, the camera's just going to shut off. Okay, and then when I fire it, it's going to take a little half a second to wake up. Well, I might miss the moment. I might miss the shot. So I'm going to leave it on where the camera's always alert. So as soon as I shoot, it's always going to be awake and shooting. Okay, make sense?
So basically, you're getting a mirror every time you shoot a shot during the game.
My other camera's
going to give you.
Correct.
Have you ever gotten anything completely random that just appeared you really didn't know that you were going to get?
Yeah, you get a lot of wasted shots, I'll be
Yeah.
honest, because sometimes there's like nothing going on, but I'm still shooting over here, but it's still going to fire it. So that's why I'm saying sometimes I know some photographers will actually take it off of the camera and handhold it. So if I'm shooting over here, by the time I come over here, I can just handhold and press it and fire it as opposed to using my other camera to fire it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And do you use any type of light modifiers? Are you using a
No.
flash or anything? No lighting at all?
And you're not allowed to use lighting in most
great.
sporting events.
Great.
No.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, the main reason, think about it. If you're on the baseline of a basketball game and a basketball player dribbles to you and you flash, he's like, whoa, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You'll get kicked out right away.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes, question?
Oh God, sorry. Is there a reason that on that second camera you don't just use continuous shots so that it's just going the whole time? I know that.
What do you mean?
Well, I was in rock and roll photography the other day, and he said that he set up a camera on the other side of the stage that just like continuously shot throughout.
Yeah,
the
because
song.
well,
And so instead of like having it be that. I mean, I guess that's random too, but it gives. I feel
that's
like it would
very
give
random,
you-
and I can't just have it like in intervals, like shoot after every 30 seconds or 20. I don't
Right.
want to do that because I don't want to miss the moment.
Yeah.
I know the moment's happening,
Okay.
so I'm just shooting somewhere else just to get it to trigger.
Okay.
So I can just shoot and control it that way.
Okay,
So
I didn't
can
realize
see
you
it
could like
happening.
see it happening.
No, I can
Okay.
see it happening. The problem is I'm on this side, and I got no
okay.
shot. It's a bad shot when I'm shooting this side, but I can have my remote shoot it, so I'll just shoot it, boom, boom, boom. I'll show you another one. This is a perfect example. Look at this next one right here. Okay. This shot I love. I took this
Wow.
last year, and this is a perfect scenario because I'm on the other side of the court. Whenever I set up a remote camera, I like to be on the other side because I don't want to duplicate what I'm doing. Well, this player had this monster dunk, and then he decided to celebrate. I mean, just this thing. And I've never seen a player do this to this day. And so, as you can see on the top right photo, you can see my camera. It's right on the stanchion at the top left, and you can see my +3 right on top of it. I'm way back, like I said, way behind, shooting really loose with a 7200 because I didn't have a shot there. I mean, he was dunking his backs to me. These shots are worthless. Anything with the back of a player is worthless. I see a lot of people send me back, for critique. Don't use the back of the player. We want to see faces, okay? And so he dunks and then does this thing. So I'm shooting, and I keep shooting because, one, I've got the setup shot that I can show you guys, and two, I've got this beautiful image of him flying through the air in my remote camera. Same setup, everything perfect, right? Yeah.
About that one.
Okay.
So obviously, I'm really curious what were your camera settings for the remote camera to get
on the
that
remote,
shot?
Now, keep in mind, nothing's going to change lighting-wise because we're inside. So I had it probably 800th of a second, f5.6, ISO maybe 2000, 2500, somewhere around there. And I did a pretest before the game. I went and stood out there, kind of around. I always aim for basketball, aim for like the circle right here, kind of somewhere close to the basket, because that way you can get dunks too, things like that. So yeah, nothing changed. Yeah, thank you. Here's one you guys mentioned before, where I got permission to put a camera in the catwalk during a playoff game. And it's scary as I'll get out, and I actually safety cable this thing like 4 times, because if something were to drop, it's trouble. So this is the same shot of a dunk. This is what I use on the right is with my 7200, capturing a dunk, and this is what it looks like from overhead. And I actually use a 70-200 on my remote to fire that. And as I'm shooting, once again, it's firing the camera upstairs. So you can kind of get the same shot from 2 different angles. Okay? I see remote's a popular topic today. Everyone likes it. Okay, clean backgrounds. This is another tip I like to share. That a lot of people send me images that have a lot of stuff in the background. You can shoot up high. We mentioned shooting low as being something really cool to do. What about shooting up high? If you shoot up high and down, you can get very clean backgrounds. This shot was one where I was just a fan. I wasn't credentialed to shoot this game. This happened to be the game that the San Francisco Giants beat the Texas Rangers to win the World Series. I was just at the game with my camera. I talked to some photographers and some editors. They're like, this is probably one of the cleanest shots of this celebration that anybody has. Why? I wasn't credentialed. I wasn't on the field with the cameraman running around with all the distracting elements. I was in my seats. The Ranger fans weren't standing. They were upset they lost. They were all sitting down. So I had a clean shot, and I have a clean background of them celebrating. Okay, so I always try to get clean backgrounds when possible. If you're shooting and there's something in the back, a distracting element like a telephone pole going out of a head or anything to distract, just move. Move one step to the right, 1 step to the left. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be lazy and just settle for distracting elements in your backgrounds. Okay? Okay, here is a 10-star tip that no one tells you about that I think that if you get anything out of my seminar, get this, okay? Because this will improve your photography. Shoot backlit when possible outside. I know that sounds crazy, but this is what works. If you ever look at a Sports Illustrated, you ever look at a Sporting News, any of the big magazines, look at their photos. Most are during the day, most are backlit. What happens with backlit photos is that the sun is going to be back behind the stadium. The only time this doesn't work is when the sun's straight ahead, and then you just have ugly light. But one way or the other, and I do this with portraits too. You know with portraits, backlit your portraits. The sun's going to be one way in the sky, one way in the sky. I'm going to be faced to the sun. I want my players in between the sun because I'm going to have a dark background because the sun's going to provide shadow on one side of the stadium and the players going to be backlit. You can see all the beautiful rim light on the players on the back. Then you're going to have reflections off the field to light their faces. And here's a better example. Look at this. Same game. You can see the facial expressions. You can see the emotions. If I was on the other side, I'd probably get a dark face. It wouldn't look as good, But by backlighting, and then I'll even shoot. I'm shooting in AV mode. I might overexpose by a third stop, just to get a little more punch in the image, to bring the image to life. That make any sense? Any questions on backlighting? Okay, another tip that will decipher it'll change your work. Straighten your horizons. When people send me images to critique, this is the biggest gripe I have. It's the biggest gripe editors have when people send in images to them. We don't live in a tilted world. Okay, it still bugs me when wedding photographers will tilt for the sake of tilting. We live in a straight world. So when editors see this, they go, amateur, pro. They know if a horizon's crooked, that's wrong. We need to straighten it. Okay? I can't stress that one enough. It's more pleasing visually, plain and simple. Okay? Here is my super tip. I love this one. Anytime you can get 2 faces and a ball in any photo, it's a winner. Any sport, any photo. One reason, it's freaking hard to get. Okay, think about it. When you've got a sport you're covering, you usually have one team on one side, another team on the other side, right? They're opposing each other. So you're getting a back of a head and maybe, it's hard to get 2 of them pointed right at you. And then let's add the ball to that. And then you're like, oh man, how the heck do you do this? So anytime you can get 2 faces and a ball, it's automatically a winner. Perfect example here. They're going after the ball. They run into each other. You see their expressions. You see the ball flying. You see the referee. To me, it's one of my favorite shots from last year. On average, if I can get one of these, a good 2 faces and a ball per game, I'm happy. That's how hard it is to get. I'm always looking for it, but it's hard to get. I took this last week at the Oklahoma game. This was that hit I was talking about where the player got ejected. He didn't. The player 22 was catching the ball for a touchdown. Number 9 goes, nails him, knocks the ball out, and makes him go flying. Well, I've got 2 faces, and I have a ball, and it's frozen. Right? Soccer. Soccer's a little bit easier to get just because there's a lot of headers. Well, they're both going up at the same time to head the ball. You can kind of get them on the same plane. But same thing here. You can see the expressions. You can see the ball on his head, and we have 2 faces and a ball. Right? This is 2 weeks ago. I actually love this photo. This was an interception, number 1 in the purple. He caught the ball, got the interception, changed the game, and actually won the game. But I love it because there's usually a jumble of body parts. Here it almost looks like ballet. They're kind of all out in this perfect moment right before they're both going for the ball. Everything's perfectly in focus. 2 faces and a ball. All right, Jim, what questions do we have on that?
All right, Kevin, let me take a peek.
And while we're doing that, let me talk about what I have for you guys.
Sounds good.
I created some PDFs for you guys, sports specific, because I know we're in a hurry and it's tough to talk about specific sports strategies today. So I created a guide with Joy Absalon's a great baseball photographer, and Daniel Shire is a great football photographer. We co-authored it. It's over 30 pages worth of a PDF full of information and instructional information, strategies, whatnot. We have a Creative Live special of $25. It's normally $35 for the next week. It's also going to be a living document. What I mean by that is as questions come in or as we think of other things, as technology improves, we're going to continually update the guide. And you will never have to pay another price to get it. It will just give you the free download. As we update it, we'll send out an email to you guys that purchase it, and you'll always have it. You'll always have the latest and greatest strategy guide, so to speak. So we're excited about it. It's at RR Web Store, which I host with Alicia Alvarez. A lot of you guys know my girlfriend. She's a wonderful baby photographer there in Dallas. And it's RR Web Store, or you can go to kjimages.com and get that. And once again, it's over 30 pages each on the football. And we're also making one for basketball and soccer, but we're putting a lot of work into it too. So it's going to be a little bit, but we'll have it. So questions?
That's awesome. Yeah, so Stricky asks, I found that autofocus has tracking problems when shooting backlit. Can you address how you overcome this issue, or have you had any issues with it?
Make sure when you're shooting backlit, you're not shooting directly into the sun. Mm-hmm. That's what I said. When you're shooting backlit, I always make sure the background is dark. Okay, I've also seen some people try to shoot with the sun where it's right in the lens, and then you're gonna get like flare. You're gonna get issues with focus. Yeah, I make sure, like in those photos I showed you, it is into the dark background. That way, my players will pop out into the light, the rim light. So I'm always shooting to a dark background if possible. Now a question will come up. I know someone might ask, well, Kevin, what do you do if the game's on the line? You've got this beautiful, pretty light, backlit shot, but the action's going the other way. You know, there's 2 minutes left. They're going to go down and score. That's a game-winning touchdown. What are you going to do? You have to sacrifice your pretty light then. I have to go down to the other end and just shoot the action because that's the main part of the game. That's the story. So I'll miss my pretty light photo, but I'll get some good action to tell the story. Okay?
Perfect. And we've also got a couple questions about hockey.
Hockey.
Two things.
Okay.
Bad light, and do you shoot through the glass, or do you get closer, or can you tell us a
Both.
little bit
Actually,
about
you know what?
hockey,
I
please?
love shooting hockey from above. I think shooting hockey from above is, one, it's clean. The backgrounds are very clean, and you have the beautiful white ice reflecting onto the players. So, I mean, you're going to get nice light from the ice. And usually I will shoot through the glass. Usually there's holes cut out where you can shoot through the glass. Now, I know that some stadiums don't have that, and then I have no problem shooting through the glass in that point. Bad light. That's the whole thing about pumping that ISO up. You know, I'll shoot it to 4,000 ISO and shoot it 2.8 and have no problem. But I personally love shooting hockey from above.
Cool. Thank
Okay.
you. Awesome.
Okay. All right, now I get to draw. This is going to be fun. I'm going to talk about strategies for a few sports. We have a little bit of time left. Where is my, oh, here's my eraser. And I'm the worst drawer on the planet, so I'm going to try this anyway. Open my, there we go. Let's talk baseball first. So, let's see, let's just draw a diamond. We'll just pretend that's a diamond. Here is the dugout, and we'll say the home team. Here's the dugout for the visiting team. Here's home plate. Okay, here's pitcher's mound, we'll just say. We'll put this first base, and we'll put third base. Okay, now for shooting baseball or softball, there are a few spots where you're allowed to photograph from. One is usually a well right here. Most stadiums have it, no matter what league. Little League, they'll at least have one here and one here. Now, most other stadiums will have one inside the home dugout and one inside the visiting dugout. And this is important because I usually start out a game shooting from one of these spots. And the main reason being is when I'm covering a game, I want to at least capture the pitchers and the batters. So I'm always going to try to get good shots of the pitchers. Whenever a batter comes up, I always want them to be facing me to get a proper photograph. If you can look on the screen, a left-handed batter, if it's Bryce Harper on top right, if he's batting here and he's a lefty right here, I'm going to be on this side shooting this way. That way I can get his batting stance. Every once in a while you'll have a batter like Beltre that's a righty, and he's actually going to open up his body all the way around. That's a rare occurrence, but sometimes they do that. And you can see I can still get away with it shooting from the opposite side just because he goes all the way around. But most times I want to kind of concentrate on them facing me. Same with pitchers. If it's a right-handed pitcher shooting here, I want to be on this side because I can get his body, as you can see in on the photo on the screen. And for a lefty, I always shot that one from right here. Okay, from this angle. Now for baseball, this is one of those sports where I love shooting from up above because like I showed you in that one photo of the Giants, you can get really clean images. Okay, let's go on here. Here's another scenario I thought we'd talk about, just because I know this is stuff that I think about, and I want you guys to know there's a lot more to it than just shooting action. What happens when the home team, it's a tie game, bottom of the ninth, where do you be? Where are you going to be? You have to think about this, because here's the home team dugout. And let's think of scenarios that might happen. Say the home team bats and the runner gets a base hit. Okay? Let's say there's runners on first and second, okay? And the home team's up. The guy gets a base hit, the winning run scores. Where should you be? Now think about what's going to happen. The visiting team, they're all dejected. They're going to walk off the field. Okay? The winning team, they're going to jump out of here, no matter what level. Little League's just as bad. They're going to jump out here, and where are they going to go? Okay? Are they going to go mob the guy that just got the game-winning hit over here at first base? Or are they going to go mob the guy that scored the run? Okay? And where's the best position? Okay, well, if I'm here, I'm probably going to get blocked. Because they're going to mob out. If they come this way, I'm blocked. If they go here, I'm kind of blocked too. The safest position is over here for most scenarios where you're talking about home team winning. Of course, in the picture bottom right, what do? I'm taking chances. I position myself here. And I'm praying, as he crossed home plate, he'll give me something. He did. He raised his hand. I am very close to being blocked, as you can see. Players are running out, but to me, they actually framed the photo for me. And so it works. Another game-winning hit, as you can see on the screen, they're celebrating over here. Okay? And I had a clean shot that way, but where am I in that position? I think I'm right over here. Okay? The next one, Here's where it gets really problematic. When you have a game-winning walk-off home run, you better be here for a home run. If you're over here, all the players jump out, and they come around home plate. Okay, and sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes you can get a clean shot of the runner coming down home and the team, but chances are they're going to mob around here and block you. If you're here, you've got nothing. You've got nothing. You're hoping that he can come out. If you're over here, you can get the expressions, as I got on the screen, you can get the player expressions about to tackle the guy that's going to score the winning run. Okay? Any questions there on baseball?
Yeah, quick one. Kevin,
Yeah.
when you're shooting baseball, how much do you move around during those 9 innings?
I move a lot.
Okay, wow.
I move a lot. I really do. I might shoot an inning or two in one position, then I might go up. I might go to third base. It depends on who's batting. You know, if I want a good shot of a lefty, a good shot of a righty. The pitchers, if it's a right-handed pitcher here, I want to be on this side. If it's a lefty, I want to be over here to make sure I get some good shots of that, as well as game action. So I do move around quite a bit in baseball.
Great, thank you.
Ooh, this rips off. Okay, let's talk. One more on baseball. Oh, people do ask me this, so I'm going to talk about it real quick. Bat on ball shots. People are like, how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, a little tip I use is when the batter is in the stance, I always look for the left leg. Okay, when the batter moves the left leg, I know he's about to swing. Because sometimes he won't even move his leg, and you know he's just taking the pitch. So I'm not just going to waste frames. So when he goes back to bat, I try to time as if I'm batting. Okay, I'll time my shutter release with when he swings to try to get that bat on ball. And it's not easy to get, especially when they're throwing 97 miles an hour. Okay, any questions on bat on ball for you guys? Okay, good.
How about broken bat?
Oh, broken bat. That's just luck.
Yeah, right.
It's the same bat on ball concept.
Yeah.
I showed you a couple in the slideshow.
Yeah.
It makes me mad sometimes because sometimes I've got my camera aimed at the field and I see a great broken bat and I wasn't aiming at home plate because it's a beautiful. I love it when you get a broken bat. I'm just same thing. I'm just aiming for when they move this foot, just bat on ball, and then just follow through with it. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. You can't plan a broken bat.
Right.
What you can do is like knowing the game, know which closers. Like in the ninth inning, Mariano Rivera is really good with broken bats. Guys like that, have a habit for making batters break their bats. Then you're more focused on the batter, so you can know hopefully you can get one. Okay, let's talk
Thank you.
football. Go ahead. Do you have a question while I'm doing this?
No, thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. We're just going to draw lines for line 6. Okay, now for football, there's usually a dotted line where photographers have to be back behind. And it usually goes to, I think, like around the 20-yard line-ish. So here's a bench area. You're not allowed to be in the bench area where the teams are. This goes for any level of football, too. Okay. First thing I want to do is kind of similar to baseball as we're talking about. If I have a right-handed quarterback, let's put the QB, and he's throwing this way, where do I have to be to get the good shot? Okay, let's think about it. If I'm over here on this sideline, I'm going to get this back. That's not necessarily the best position. So I kind of want to be right over here. And what I will do is, if here's the line of scrimmage, I will tend to be 5 to 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage because I can shoot right here, have a clean photo when he backs up. He's going to go back about 10 yards, back up, then throw. And I want a clean shot of him. Okay? Make sense? Same thing with the other quarterback. For most shots, I personally love to be in the end zone. That's like right over here in the corner. One of these 4 corners. I like the corners because there's always a pylon right here. And you guys probably see these shots on SportsCenter with the players are running to the pylon, they dive for the pylon. That's where you make these really cool photos from like the corners right over here. If I'm up here in the middle, I'm going to have referees in my way, and I'm going to miss this shot here. It's not going to look as pleasing because, one, I've got all these people here on the sideline too. It's real distracting. So I like to be in the end zone. Plus, if like the photo on the screen, if I'm behind the action, I can capture wide receivers when they run, they turn around for the ball. I'll have a defender in the screen as well. We can capture, two faces on a ball type thing when you're behind them. Now, it's problematic when you have a team that's dominating another team and the defense isn't really good. Then you don't want to be on the other side. You want to follow the action downfield. That make sense? If you are focused on a particular team, maybe you're hired by the team to focus on their players, like their offensive and defensive linemen, well, then you definitely need to be in the end zone so you can get isolated shots. For example, I've got these defenders, this defensive lineman on the right. I'm down low against the ground, and I can actually get him off the line of scrimmage where it's a clean photo. There's no distracting elements in the background. And it's a little tougher when you're talking offensive and defensive linemen because they're usually with other people. They're actually engaged in a tackle. And so to get that, you kind of have to be in the end zone. If you're on the sideline, it's a little more hectic to do. Okay, any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Do you typically try and get a picture of each player, or is that just kind of you're trying to get some good pictures of individual players?
Sometimes we have clients at USA Today where they'll send us a list beforehand of client pictures that we need to get. Like the clients might say, we need so-and-so, we need so-and-so, shots of so-and-so without a helmet, just shots of game action of so-and-so. But yeah, it's almost impossible to get every player. I will shoot a lot of stock stuff where I will get most players, most star players, the big players, maybe some of the upcoming players for future years, things like that. Guys that might be drafted, things like that. When I'm kind of focused on stuff like that. But yeah, it's impossible to get every single player. Yeah, but I'll try to get as many as possible. Okay. Okay, let's start soccer. We'll keep our same field because it's pretty similar. I do a couple of different things in soccer. Those of you guys that know the guys over there in Europe that cover English Premier, these guys know soccer like it's nothing. So, their premier position is once again in the corners. They'll have like their 400s or 600s. They'll be in the corner of a soccer field. Main reason being, let's use this as a net. They can use their 400 or 600, and they can get a good shot of action here in front of the net as well as downfield. And usually they're right here. Sorry, not over here. Where they can have clean shots. Okay, when you get stuck here, a little closer to the net, then all of a sudden your lens gets too tight. Okay, then you're having to use your 70-200 to work. And sometimes it's just a little too loose. So what I do is I do this shot too, but I also lately have loved moving around to midfield. If I have the opportunity, I will try to shoot some from here because it gives me a perfect shot here and a perfect shot here of both goalies. Okay, and usually you're not allowed to be in the bench area. If this is a bench 1, bench 2, so I'll be on the other side. And my 400 is a perfect distance. As you can see from the photos, you can get some really dramatic goalkeeper shots where they're diving, like the one on the left. He's actually jumping to make the save. And I couldn't get that from the side as good because I wanted to see the goalkeeper's face as well. And then you can get the goalie punching the ball out on another shot. But that's from midfield. And not a lot of people use midfield. So that's one of my things I just started doing, but I like it because it's different. This one here, this is a funny story actually. This is David Beckham. He played in Dallas. This was a game I covered, and it wasn't supposed to rain. Okay? And then I'm down on the field, and all of a sudden we get this torrential downpour. And I'm like, what the heck? And of course my rain gear's upstairs. So I grab all my stuff, I'm going upstairs to get my rain gear, and then I found this little awning. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot a little bit under this awning. So I aim my camera down, and I see it just makes for some beautiful pictures. And this one of Beckham, he's kicking it on the left side. It's just a nice picture with the rain flowing, and I love to shoot soccer from above. This is what I'm getting at because, one, it's another clean background that we can use. And actually, Sports Illustrated ran it in a double truck when it was his last season here. And he's kicking the ball in the rain, and I just love this photo. And it just happened to be an accident. I was trying to get away from the rain and found it in the awning. So anyway, what questions do we have?
All right.
We'll wrap up here. Just so people know where I'm at. Like I said, I know we're fast and furious trying to cover a lot of sports that we can go on days on each one. I'm at Kevin Gerard on just about everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and KJ Images is the website. So let's open up for a few questions.
Fantastic. We got some really good ones, Kevin.
Right.
So Robert Lug2 wants to know, do you shoot RAW, JPEG?
Okay.
Or both, or what do you shoot?
I shoot JPEG, and the main reason being is I have to transmit images when I'm shooting. I have to transmit images at all parts of the game. If I'm shooting a football game, I'm transmitting images before the first quarter is over. So I run in there. I don't have time to shoot RAW. RAW is too big, too big of files. And I'm a big believer in getting it right in camera. So I will make sure my white balance, everything looks good ahead of time. I'll do some test shots. I just got my workflow down now. I shoot strictly JPEG, and I'm shooting really fast. Okay, and I'm getting in and out. I don't have time to shoot RAW. Yeah.
Okay.
What's your insurance policy like? Do you?
Yeah, insurance policy. I have everything insured through Hill and Usher. Yeah, quite a bit of money we spend on it, but chances are if you're a sports photographer, your equipment's going to break.
Right. And outside of the equipment, like what if, like someone, like your liability insurance?
Yeah,
like,
I've got liability for
Okay.
me up to I think $2 million.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
One blurry lens would like to know,
Blurry lens.
and I
Nice
love
name.
this question because clearly you're a sports fan.
Yeah.
Any rules etiquette-wise for cheering or not cheering?
Yeah. You don't do it. You don't do it.
How do you
You
just
don't.
dig deep and you're like,
No, like I went to Oklahoma. I covered them last week.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Sooner fan, but you have to be neutral. You're there to tell a story. You're a photojournalist. So no, you do not wear any clothing that has logos of your
Sure.
team that you're rooting for. So you kind of wear neutral clothing and you're non-biased. And same thing with writers up in the press box. There's some of those guys that are covered a local team. They're not allowed to cheer. You can get your credentials revoked by doing stuff like that. So yeah, you're definitely neutral.
okay, fantastic. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to reiterate from Kristen, and a lot of people, of course, are asking
Okay.
the magic question, as we talked about yesterday. As a beginner, how do you get started getting credentials for events? You talked about sending your book. Any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, like I said, action is action, storytelling is storytelling. And right now you don't have the credentials. Just go shoot at your local park. Get some images that tell a story and put something together. And then go meet, if you want to shoot for a magazine, go meet with a magazine editor, call up a magazine editor, send in an album like I did. There's lots of magazines out there. There's lots of newspapers out there. Send your work in. They know, editors, I promise you, know a good photo from a bad photo. The problem is so many people are sending in bad photos. And some of these tips, like I told you about the horizons, backlighting, if you send that stuff in to two faces and a ball, if you guys do that, they will see, oh, they know what they're doing, and they're more apt to respond to you. If you don't get a response, the chances are most of the photos are probably not what they're looking for. And those are the tips, like I said, I learned that, and it's helped me progress. So, same thing.
Fantastic, because we got a lot of people in the rooms here that are asking about that.
Okay.
I'm going to ask one final question.
Sure.
We've talked about a lot of the larger sports.
Okay.
Have you ever, and this is my own personal question, have you ever shot the Olympics? And then how is that a game changer for you, or other sports like volleyball and
Actually,
strange sports?
Yeah,
right?
I haven't photographed the Olympics yet, but I will be going to Russia for the Winter Olympics. I'm excited about that.
Okay.
I will be photographing that, so I can tell you after that how it is. I haven't done too many of the little sports yet, but I'm also willing to learn. And it's one of those things, when I am going to be assigned, or if I'm ever assigned for a sport, I will always Google and look up photos of that particular sport, because I want to kind of get an idea how to cover it. So I'll never go in there blindly, not knowing what I'm going to shoot. I'm going to definitely do my research before I do that. Yes?
For people that are just getting into sports photography,
Uh-huh.
can you explain a little bit about how, when you say like, oh, CNN picked up this photo, how does that affect you? Is it just for credit
Yeah, I have a
for
contract.
byline?
Yeah, I freelance for USA Today Sports, and so we have an agreement in place that they pay us a rate to shoot a game, as well as they give us royalties on images that get run in magazines and books and in newspapers and whatnot. So that's how that works. It's just a contract you enter into an organization, and there's lots of organizations out there like that. So.
Great. Kevin, this has been fantastic.
Well, thanks. It's
Just-
great being here.
Just thank you so much. I mean, you knocked it out of the park. Oh, gosh, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But your first time here at Creative Live. So I'm sure we're going to want to have you back, and maybe even after the Olympics, we do a longer course, because
For sure.
everybody was just loving this stuff, and I imagine we could expand this
Most
to
definitely,
bigger.
most definitely.
But this segment here, I mean, my gosh, you were going like the Energizer Bunny, and so
A lot of info to get to.
a lot of info to get here. And I also want to mention that with purchase, Kevin is also providing a bonus video of how to shoot basketball. And so we're really super excited for that. So I want to give Kevin a big round of applause, because it's just been fantastic. And I know, Kevin, that you have a sponsor. And
Yes.
so, and I do want you to talk about your sponsors. So I'm going to say, let's talk about my best friend, the Pocket Wizard.
Yeah, Pocket, like I said, these guys are really good with the triggers. This is what I use for my remotes, and they just work flawlessly. And these are the +3s. That's what I've been using lately. And one reason I like them is because the range is really good on them too. And I can actually shoot from one end of the soccer field to the other end if I have like a remote in the back of a net. And so Pocket Wizard, like I said, is the standard that all the pros are using for any of their triggers. And I use them in wedding receptions and other stuff too. So I love working with those guys. So for sure.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm a huge fan as well. I know they're just an amazing product. When I first discovered them, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Especially, because we all know how, having off camera, whether it's remotes or flashes, really turns our photography into something special. So you guys, we're going to be taking a 45-minute break, but a couple of announcements to hit on before we go. We are having today and every day this week a pretty amazing deal of the day by one of our sponsors. And today's deal of the day is from Animoto. And if you were in our last class, we were looking at the power that Animoto can bring to slideshows. And they're having an awesome deal for that's going to give discounts for their annual product. So you can go to animoto.com/CL, or you can get a lot more information on creativelive.com/blog. Just go ahead and search for Deal of the Day. And everyone who enrolls or RSVPs and joins the Creative Live class for Photo Week, you'll be able to receive a 60-page PDF from Digital Photography School. So one really good reason to enroll in the class. And I got to tell you, in the chat rooms, people have just been going nuts, not just today, but all week, about the amount of amazing content that these world-class instructors are bringing to Creative Live. I know today's my first day here at the Anchor Desk, and already I'm blown away by all the things I'm learning. So these individual classes are available for $49, but you can also purchase the 3 tracks for $179 each. But at the end of the day, really where you guys out there will knock it out of the park is by investing in the entire week. We're talking 6 days, 50 instructors, 72 classes, and that's a huge number of classes and amount of content, and the whole thing is $299, so quite the deal. All you do is scroll down to the bottom of your video screen and you'll see a buy button. Go ahead and click that. All right, like I said, we're going to be taking a 45-minute break, and when we come back, we'll have Create the Images You Imagine with Robin Layton. So we're really looking forward to some great stuff this afternoon. So with that, we'll see you when we get back.